I was coming into an organization where they had not previously had a lot of status reporting or project management in the past. So being able to show up weekly and say, like, here we are, here's where we were, here's how we're doing. By the way, here are a couple of things to watch out for. That was pretty revolutionary for them. And I think, any organization where people are not tracking that kind of information, it's going to be a huge impact right out of the gates.
I am so excited about this episode with Molly Beran because she is explaining practical ways that she herself has implemented AI in not only her job, but also in her life. Molly and I talk about how she used Copilot to create overtime reports in terms of percentage complete to give to her leadership team. The organization that she was working for was very starting from scratch when it came to their project management practices. We'll say that. And when you're starting from scratch, it's easy just to say, hey, this point in time reporting is good enough. And it is good enough. But Molly goes into why specifically snapshotting and specifically the percent complete being that key metric for her and that organization, why reporting on that over time is really important in terms of context of what's happening with the project and why a stalled project does not mean a failed project. It means that other things could be happening. She discusses that, but then she also goes into, okay, well, giving that overtime reporting actually takes a lot of a project manager's time. You're trying to find this information in emails. You're trying to find this information in your project management software. Maybe you do actually have an Excel file that's tracking this, but it takes a lot of time. So what did Molly do as a naturally curious person? She built an AI agent to do this reporting for her, to pull this information for her. I found this really interesting because I think the way Molly talks about this is it's very much about applying AI to your needs today, your organization's needs today. It's not this overarching AI cloud and how we're going to use it here and how we're going to use it there. It is truly the practical real life implementation of it. One thing that Molly focuses on is how she saw a need, a problem to solve, got curious enough about it to then learn how to do that. And the ways that she interacted with specifically Copilot in this example to give her what she wants. One of the questions that I asked her was, what mental state, what do we need to be mentally prepared for if we were to build a very similar AI agent process for this? And she was very honest with her answer. You have to be curious. And if you're not curious enough, you're likely going to get stalled as soon as the AI doesn't explain itself well enough, or it gives you inaccurate information, or it's citing a source here and that source says A, but the AI is telling you B. So there's a lot of work that you have to wade through in order to get what you want. And that level of curiosity is what's going to be continuing to push you to do this. Additionally, she talks about, well, there has to be a problem to solve. So if I could sum up this episode, we are talking about finding ways to improve your reporting as a project manager, understanding what leadership wants to see and what's going to be the most important to give them the full story, and then finding ways to get that information that is going to be effective for your time and also accurate for your leadership as well. I think this conversation is going to help you take away something to improve your life for the better later. Enjoy this episode with Molly Beran. Let me know what you think, and let me know if you've ever built an AI agent from scratch as well. I'm really curious about this. Molly Beran is the founder of Projects by Molly, where she helps organizations design and implement systems that bring clarity, structure, and focus to their most important work. With more than 20 years of corporate experience and a PMP certification, Molly partners with both small and large businesses to define what truly matters, organize priorities effectively, and build processes that keep complex initiatives on track without overwhelming teams. When Molly isn't being a project management pro, she is playing the saxophone. So cool. It's turned scattered work into structured, visible, and achievable outcomes. Molly, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much. Happy to be here.
Oh, so excited to have you. So, can you tell us about Projects by Molly? Who do you serve and what problems are you solving?
Absolutely. So Projects by Molly is my consulting firm, and I founded it just shy of 5 years ago in September 2021. That's when I went full time. And I serve all different kinds of organizations. So my background was in healthcare and IT. So a lot of my clients historically have been either in the healthcare space or our IT departments. But I also have worked with a number of different nonprofits. So for me, my main focus is really helping teams that need it really define and deliver their projects in a way that makes sense and is trackable to everyone. So that's really industry agnostic for the most part. So a lot of times it's boiling down to who do I know, who have I worked with in the past, and who's heard of me and or wants some help. So I really like to work with a broad variety of clients, which has been really fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome to have that network. So today we are going to be talking about your experience bringing AI in a meaningful way into project management. But before we get into that, can you set the scene for us? What was your relationship with technology and adopting new tools before you started this?
So growing up in healthcare IT spaces, I think I was a little bit more exposed to technology from early on in my career. So I got my start working at a software company called Epic, which does medical record software. I mean, over 50% of US adults are cared for by somebody using Epic. So early on, I got a quick education in how do computer systems work? How do we set them up? How do we test them? How do we configure them to meet our needs? And then, how do we marshal a team to build them, test them, and deploy them to large scale organizations? So I think that gave me like just enough exposure to what is writing code, what does it look like. I didn't ever develop software for Epic, but I got involved sometimes with testing. I did a ton of configuration. And so I think like that just kind of set me up pretty well going forward. So since then, I've used a lot of different Microsoft products, a lot of different software tools for managing projects outside of the Microsoft family. But I think like having that first foundation, really working at a software company, kind of set me up for some early success. So I think like overall, my relationship with technology was in fact pretty good, at least as baseline a level as somebody growing up in healthcare IT would have.
Yeah. Well, and it sounds like too, like a healthy desire to be curious as well. So like you said, getting involved in that testing, not everyone would do that. So a healthy desire to get involved in ways where it's like, I may not have development experience, but I could be of value here and learn something new, which is awesome.
I just always loved the idea of how somebody who was a developer could just make something happen that they wanted to make happen.
Yes, I have
There's
that same
something about
curiosity.
that.
It's so cool.
It's so cool. I've always wanted to like learn how to do it, and also never cared to go to school and sit through all of those classes. Like I had friends who did it, I had boyfriends who did it, and it was not what I wanted to study when I went to college. So,
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that that's fair because same. I'm curious about it, but I don't want to study it.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and kind of boil this down to really the baseline of the experience that you're going to share today. So let's talk about the data side of project management and why that is so important. So what information do you think is really important to track? And what does it feel like when you can't get like a clean picture of what that information is?
Yeah. So, I like to keep things as basic as I can when I'm running a project, even really, really complex ones. I think once your project plan hits 1,000 lines, people get lost. No one can find it. So like really, really simplifying. So, at your basic level, any certified PMP is going to tell you, well, we have to know what are the tasks that we're doing? What are the phases that the project is organized in? what are some of our key milestones or like the really, really important tasks that are going to determine other things and dependencies. I think that's really the main core data set that moves and changes throughout the course of a project. I would say too, other data in information such as your charter, why are you doing this project, or who's involved, like your stakeholders, all of that is equally important as well. And a lot of that type of data is not necessarily moving and changing at the rapid pace that a task is or isn't changing.
Yeah, those things are the variables because, as we'll talk about too, timelines are shifting. A task is complete. Maybe it's not complete. It's being, shuffled across team members. There's a lot of information that goes there. So let's talk about, speaking of tasks specifically, that percent complete. So understanding where you are at within that task and honestly within that project, it's really one of, dare I say, the most basic metrics, I think, in project management, but it is really hard to capture accurately. What do you think makes that so difficult to do?
Well, I think there's a lot of different things that come into play for that. First and foremost is that people are pretty bad estimators of how long it's going to take them to do something.
Correct.
And so many times people will say that they're, oh, I got started, I'm 50% done. And then the next week they're like, oh, I'm 80% done. And then the next week I'm 81% done. And then 82% done. And then 83% done. And it's like that 80 to 100 mark could take just as long, if not longer, than the first two. So I think what that really boils down to is a lot of times you lay into a task and you don't realize all of the work that's going to be included within it. And I'm not here to point fingers or say that that's a problem. I think good project managers get ahead of that. We help define things really well. But inevitably, no matter how good you are, things pop up. New initiatives hit. Something was easy yesterday, but is infinitely more complex today because of things like AI or new regulations, or somebody up there has a great new strategy that we all have to implement starting today, no questions asked, right? So inevitably, there is some amount of, we just never know how long it's really going to take from the beginning. That said, I think too, you can do a lot to help people out by making tasks smaller and more manageable, because the smaller it is, the easier it is to complete. Just the easier it will be for your numbers to be accurate, right? So having one step in a task as opposed to 5 steps in a checklist in one task, right? But at the same time, you want to weigh and balance that, right? I always say that project management is more of an art than a science, because it's not like there's a number. It's not like even your best rule of thumb, your 880 or your 420 rules, where you've got 8 hours of work or 2 weeks of work goes into a task. It doesn't always work that way. It's not always a clean breakdown. So I think like poor task design can lead to that as well. And then also, I personally, and this might be a little bit of a hot take, but I personally do not think there is much value in saying a task went from, say, 16% to 18% done. I usually only track at the big milestones, so 25, 50, 75, 100. In fact, when I use Excel to do project plans, which I don't do a lot of anymore, but back in the day, I set up lists, and those were the only values you could choose, because ultimately, like, going from 16 to 18% is just annoying busy work for the person doing the task, for the project manager to ask about it. So I find that 0, 25, 50, 75, 100, those are the big ones. So if you haven't gotten there yet, cool, we're going to leave it at 25 and you let me know when we get to 50. And that, I think, helps decrease some of that busy work feel that can sometimes pop up during projects.
Yeah, I feel like that's one of the things. I've had conversations with other guests before about the amount of busy work, and then also just governance and policing a project schedule and those tasks. And sometimes project managers, we just take it too far, where it goes, okay, well, what are those important milestones? Because that 2% really tells me nothing. So why are we even focusing on that? And I think that that's one thing that a lot of we tend to go in this whole, like, we're very structured people. We like to know things. So why not have as much information as possible? And sometimes that's hurting you more than it's helping you.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So mentioning this too, so knowing a task, let's say, does go from 16 to 18, let's say it does go from 0 to 25 to whatever those milestones are. I think that that's really going to lead us nicely into the next conversation of point in time reporting. So knowing that at the end of the day, the people are doing the work and the project manager is managing the project, but you still have to report on this and you have to make the data make sense. So can you talk about the difference between point in time reporting versus overtime reporting and why those two things are vastly different, both in structure, but also in impact?
Yeah. So point in time reporting is something that I've seen almost every project management system be able to do pretty well. Like you pull up the project, maybe you've got a nice little dashboard you can export, and it tells you like, today my project is overall 20% complete. And I really think of it as like a point in time, like where are we at right now today? And that's good. That's good for knowing today what's happening. But let's say you are coming up on your quarterly meeting with your executive team and you need to report out on project progress over the past quarter. That point in time report basically tells you nothing unless you can compare it to where were we at this same time a quarter ago or 2 weeks ago or a month ago or whenever it is that your reporting period is set for. So over time reporting is much more about trending and looking at, what are some of our key performance indicators and how are we doing on that? Are we using percent complete? Are we using total number of tasks that we've had or haven't done, right? Like there's a few different ways you can slice and dice that. But for me, the overtime reporting is really where you are more able to talk about like, okay, we're 20% done and that's great. Or we're 20% done and that's actually terrible because last quarter we were 15% done. So now it's been 3 months. And we didn't do nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That context is so important because I think too, if you aren't able to say, hey, we only went from 15 to 20% in 3 months, and then you're not able to provide that context to the leadership team to say, okay, well, why? Well, it's because, we got this new initiative that everyone is excited in. We had to pull resources away. Or maybe it's because, one major part of the project took a lot longer. I think that context is so important. And, like what happens when leaders are not given all of the information? So they're making decisions on data that wasn't telling the full story. Like what happens in those scenarios?
That is usually when projects die. They get cut because someone says, you've only made 5% this quarter. When in truth, like right now, I'm working on a project where we were ready to move some databases. But when we did an upgrade, we realized that all of the Python code that we are using to update data now has to be completely rewritten. And it has nothing to do with the version upgrade. There's just a mismatch and it doesn't work anymore. So now, to do this move to the cloud, we have to refactor all of this code that was never in scope in the first place, but we know it will break if we don't. So that would be a reason, and I think a valid one, as to why this project, it looks stalled. Like we have not yet moved to the cloud, but we also inserted all of this additional work that we're now currently refactoring.
Yeah, and that is tricky to have to explain to someone, but it's good to have and here's why. So
yes.
As a project manager, how long are you spending pulling that overtime data together? Whether it is notes or percent complete or something like that, how long are you pulling all of that together before it's making sense?
So this, I think, varies widely, and it depends a lot on the systems that people have in place. But, some of the worst times that I've experienced is when I'm like literally going back email by email from every time I sent out a status report on a Friday, and I'm combing through to find what was the percent complete that week to this week to this week to that week so I can like get a trend line going and actually show where are we at with this. And that takes hours, days. I mean, it might take an hour if I could sit down and do it all, but inevitably over the course of how we work, you're getting interrupted, you get pulled into other things. So a simple data pull like that can literally take you hours, days, weeks if you're having to go through that by hand.
Yeah. And if you're an Outlook user, Outlook search is not friendly, and you will spend so much time just trying to find that email.
If you even can find it, let's be honest.
Yes. Outlook will make you think, did I ever even send it? You
Correct.
did. It just, they forgot that it existed. So let's go ahead and talk about and start really painting that picture of the application of AI in project management. So was there a specific moment or even a specific project where you said, I need a better way to do this rather than combing through the email? And when did you land on, hey, maybe AI could help me do this? What was that?
So I was starting a new engagement where I was going to be leading a number of different projects, and the tools that we were using to track those projects was Microsoft Planner. And this particular client did not want to do another system. They're Microsoft shop. They want to, get big bang for their buck in terms of return on investment. So I initially started doing a deep dive in like YouTube to try to figure out, okay, how can I get some overtime data and set up some Power Automate flows and blah, blah. But then the big kicker was when I realized if I wanted to set it up once for a whole group of projects, I was going to need something beyond what the internet had provided, which was always just for like one planner plan. Here's, you can do a dashboard. And now it's like, well, if you have 20 planner plans, how do you get that into a format where you can make a dashboard using Power BI or whatever reporting tools, are available? So I thought, well, maybe Copilot could help me. So I sat down and I told Copilot in common language, like, listen, I've got 20 planner plans and I want to start doing some overtime reporting. How might I set that up? And hours later, we iterated and we iterated and we iterated, and we got to a working solution where I've been able to produce snapshots so that every week I can know what is my total percent complete for this project. And then I can use Power BI to look at all of those snapshots, map them to the current projects, and then be able to do some week over week trending.
Yeah. That is awesome. And I'm glad that you mentioned too, it's not as easy as just saying, hey, Copilot, I want to do this. Now go do it. It takes some time to set it up and to get it understanding what you're looking for. Right. So I know that you said this engagement specifically, they are a Microsoft shop. So going to Copilot probably feels really natural. But is there something that drew you to Copilot, maybe beyond that, compared to some of the other AI tools that are out there?
Well, really, the Microsoft thing was kind of the critical lever on this one, because what I have found in my use of AI is that Copilot is really good at telling you how to do stuff in Microsoft products. If I were working in a different vendor suite, I imagine I would have leveraged something else. I also personally really like Claude, so I've used Claude a lot in work I've done with some nonprofit organizations, some volunteer basis. So I think and Claude has some pretty good coding help as well. So I might have gone that route instead. But for this one, it really was because I was specifically looking to do stuff I didn't know how to do with Microsoft. And Copilot's really good at telling you how to use Microsoft. So I was like, well, that's the winner. We're going to use Copilot.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. Sometimes it's just path of least resistance, and that's the way to go. That makes sense. So let's talk about those early days or early hours, potentially.
Sure.
when you were first approaching Copilot to do this work and to start that conversation, did you try anything at first that didn't work and you had to learn to pivot, or how did it teach you to be better, whether that's prompting, whether that's the specific data you're trying to feed it? Did you have something that was really like, oh, we gotta move?
I think a couple of things sort of came together. I had been trying some stuff on my own with Power Automate, and I kept hitting brick walls. And so I was reading the error messages, and I didn't know how to interpret them. So I started there, actually. So I tried to use code. I got this error message in Power Automate. What does it mean? And inevitably, it would tell me an answer, and then it would explain drop some casual terms, like create an expression or, make a filter array. And I would be like, what is a filter array, good sir?
Let's dive into that one a little bit more.
Yeah, exactly. So it really was a case where I started with demonstrated errors that I knew something was broken, but I didn't know what. So Copilot helped me fill in the blanks. And then inevitably, as I was chasing those answers, I would stumble upon other things that would set off a light bulb and be like, oh, wait, maybe I could use that. And then I would ask Copilot, are you sure I should do that thing you just said? Because I think I might be able to use this other thing you just told me about. And inevitably be like, oh, yes, you're right, Molly. You could do that other thing. Or that other thing I said was bonkers. Yes. It's all right. I eventually had to tell Copilot, please quit giving me as much praise. I do appreciate the validation, but I really don't need it right now.
Yes. It's funny. I was actually just talking with a friend of mine who at her job, they use Perplexity, and it's like a enterprise-wide thing. And she was finding, she was using it for some prospecting. She's in sales. And she was like, all of this information is wrong. Why does it keep giving me wrong information? And someone was like, well, you have to legitimately tell it to give you factual information. Cite your sources and give it factual information. And then you have to really bluntly be like, I need you to do this. And so being that best friend of wow, you're so right and so smart. It's you didn't need to catch me. You didn't need to tell me that. I didn't need to be set up to be told that.
Yeah. Yeah. I can tell when something's objectively false. Thank you.
Oh my gosh. AI, it's changing the world. So let's go back to the overtime reporting and the snapshotting. So snapshotting as a term, it makes a lot of sense, but can you define at the most basic level what a snapshot would be within project management?
Yeah, so a snapshot would be to basically take a point in time measurement of where you're at right now in terms of your percent completes, and other things too, potentially. Yeah. But so you would take that snapshot today, and now 2 weeks from today, when you are going to do a report for your project leadership over progress made in the last 2 weeks, you then compare that today, which is 2 weeks from now, versus today's today, and you're able to do overtime trending.
Going back, it's that point in time is important to have, so that way you can get the overtime. Yep.
Right. It's point in time overtime. That's a great way to define it.
Yes. So what were some of the very specific prompts that you were telling Copilot to do when you were saying, hey, I need you to compare the point in time overtime to give me what I want? What were some specific things that you were asking it?
So I really framed it initially as I want to create a snapshot such that every week on Fridays, I will get the total number of tasks, the total number of completed tasks, and from that generate a percent complete overall for each project in this particular planner group. And I literally wrote it out like that. And then, a lot of different prompts and instructions followed. I started actually by asking, could you draw me a big picture diagram, like a design plan for how we're going to do this? And I spent some time going over that diagram, asking it questions. And then I actually did meet with 2 real people, developers, to vet hey, Copilot said I should do it this way. Is that accurate. And mostly it was pretty good, but they had some suggestions because they really do understand how Power Automate is designed to work and how we're using it at that particular client site. So that was a really useful step for me in the process. But yeah, I started asking, like, give me the plan. Then I started asking whatever questions I saw that didn't line up for me in the plan. And then once I got to the point where I needed to start building, I asked it to give me click by click directions on how to do this. And it would like go step by step. And then sometimes I had to say like, I literally don't understand this step. What exactly do I click on? And then it would tell me like, open this thing, go to this part of the field, click on insert expression, click on this, do that. And it was, for me, that was really, really useful. And, you know, once you've done it a couple of times, it actually gets a lot easier. But for me, I mean, I literally started, I mean, almost from scratch. I had done a few things in Power Automate, but not a lot. So it was really helpful to ask the term that I use, like click by click, and then it delivers.
And I think that's one of the things people forget about when they are thinking about applying AI and these agents to their work is, one, you do have to set it up yourself. It's going to take some time and effort, but also don't quit just when you're like, okay, well, I don't even know how to do that now. So now I have to learn something else. And it's like, no, it's really as simple as I don't understand. Tell me exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. And I think that's that healthy dose of curiosity where it's like, just keep going and eventually you'll get there, but it's going to take some time to understand exactly what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, exactly.
So just to, so thinking about this snapshotting, other than percent complete, so thinking about the different types of what you can report on for a project, other than percent complete, I know we talked about some of the more static things like your business case or whatnot. In the grand scheme of things, what else do you think would be really beneficial to report on for this overtime reporting?
So that, I think, is a question best answered by someone's executive team. So knowing what's really important to them. For me, the only thing I'm really doing over time in terms of any executive roll-up is percent complete. I theoretically could be pulling things like our, progress that we had made. Like I do a little summary of that. I do a summary of our key risks and issues. But I don't know that that is as helpful because like you can still see the old reports in context in PDF, right? So for me, I think that is pretty inclusive of what I would want. I have worked with some executives in the past who wanted to see when dates shift. So if there is a change in a start date or an end date, and doing that in the method I've just described would be much, much harder. I don't know that I and Copilot could solve for that particular use case. But that is one where the weekly reporting that you do might be a little bit better served in terms of flagging things that are different or changed. But that I think is also a really unique request and one that may or may not land with a lot of other executive teams.
Yeah, I feel like that I'm glad you say like the answer is not, there's not one answer. You really have to understand what information is going to be important to who, because, dates slipping, if it's a week or a couple days or something, an executive may be like, yeah, I don't need to know that. Those are such small things. Whereas someone else really wants to know that information. And so you're right. You have to sit down and have that conversation to say, what is important to you? And then making sure you are giving them all of that information and all of that context. Mm-hmm. So that does bring me to my next area that I want to dive into. So what having this better data and having this overtime reporting actually changes for an organization and how it, in theory, gets better. So knowing this example here, when you introduce this overtime reporting data, the snapshotting data to the leadership team, what was their reaction? were they able to really, did they cling on to it as something that was beneficial?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, especially in this case, I was coming into an organization where they had not previously had a lot of status reporting or project management in the past.
Mm,
So being able to show up weekly and say, like, here we are, here's where we were, here's how we're doing. By the way, here are a couple of things to watch out for. That was pretty revolutionary for them.
mm,
And I think, any organization where people are not tracking that kind of information, it's going to be a huge impact right out of the gates. And I've actually had a number of clients recently who've come to me who are in that position where they have not really done any project management, organization, reporting at all in
mm.
their organizations. So, coming from my background more in healthcare and IT, I had grown up having that sort of a
Yeah.
database, right? So I immediately, when I came into an organization, saw like, oh, this is we've got to figure something out for that.
Hmm.
And I do like to be in my consulting business solution agnostic. So this example we've been talking about was with a Microsoft shop,
Yeah.
but I've also set up the same thing for clients who use products like Asana or Monday.com or like other tools of their choice, right? And
Hmm.
one of the things that I really believe in is to help people use their investments to the best of their capabilities.
Hmm.
And that's, I think, on the top of mind for a lot of executive leaders as well, is how do we use the software that we've already got as opposed to like finding some shiny new solution. And I think that can be a really big win for the organization if you can get to some level of this type of reporting from what they've already got.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. And I've seen that as well. So how has the conversations changed? So really thinking like the reports that you're giving them on Friday or whenever that follow-up is, what were the conversations like before, especially knowing that this organization was starting from scratch into now? Do you feel as if they are more, I don't want to say strategic, I feel like that's too broad of a term here, but do you feel as if those conversations are more tactical and more, okay, this is what we're going to do next, or helping make more decisions?
I'd say that the conversations have become more transparent,
Mm.
right? So people know why things are falling. It's not about like, oh, this isn't going well. It's, oh, this isn't going well because we have only done one task in the last 4 weeks because here are the reasons, here are the reasons, here are the
Hmm.
reasons. So
Hmm.
it's painting a better context. So the decisions that are made can be based on better information so that the conversation can go a little bit deeper and talk more about like, why are things happening as opposed to wait, what is going on in the first place?
Hmm. Yeah, that is really important. And one thing that I think in my experience working with different teams too, it's being able to explain that why will also drive the roadmap in the future. So like you said, moving databases now requires a whole Python code rewrite. We didn't know that before. So when we do this in the future, we need to make sure that we're taking that into consideration and we are reviewing that. So I feel like this naturally helps organizations to, yes, get more mature in their processes and how they work, but it's also helping the organization understand themselves more and breaking down a lot of those silos too. So now we're even talking about going beyond just, hey, leadership gets a better picture, if you will, but now we're talking about they get to understand how the organization works and where those silos are and where things could break because of what. And I think that is extremely powerful when, you're talking about an organization that's moving from scratch to getting a little bit more mature.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's talk about other practical, or maybe not practical. Maybe if this could happen, it would be great. Uses of AI in project management. So I do think, obviously taking notes, listening into those conversations, sending follow-ups potentially. Those details are very important to the job of a project manager. But what else do you think, or are you excited to apply AI to in this role?
Yeah, I have been using AI to take notes for a long time. I do oftentimes edit them afterwards before I send them out. Just there are certain technical difficulties that have not gotten perfected yet, which is fine. It still, I think, takes better quality notes than I can when I'm both facilitating and taking notes. So I do appreciate the assist there. I am hoping to see some better performance in terms of Outlook integrations, and what I mean by that is like if Outlook or Copilot could like look through my calendar, intelligently figure out which meetings are coming up, what was the last week version of that meeting? Could it take those follow-ups and like comb through other people's emails and see if somebody has in fact done them and like give us an update on like, yes, we've done that. And I've looked into this a little bit. I think some combination of Copilot and a Loop workspace might be some of the keys to unlocking this kingdom. But I really think it would be great if like we've sent out notes and here are the follow-ups. Did they happen? Like Copilot has a window into everybody's mailbox, into everybody's tasks. Like it would be great if we could get some of that data before the call. And I mean, dare I say, would we even need a call necessarily? But again, this is where like people would have to update things and check off boxes and do actually, do the work, but also say they've done the work, or at least done the work in a way that Copilot knows that that's the thing that got done. Because that's where I am finding some of the gaps, like filling in the gaps. AI is not great at. It is good when you say this discrete thing needs this discrete thing. Cool, go. But like this one-off meeting that's related to this series where we did talk about something in detail, we said we would do it, we're doing it now, there's follow-ups here, they might relate to that other meeting, do they relate to, like, it's not great at sorting through all of that yet. But I look forward to a future where it might be, because that would be awesome.
Mm-hmm. So I internally was looking at building some type of AI agent for everywhere from our sales team talking to prospects and how that information could then turn into information for our implementation team, which then could turn into information for our customer success and our customer experience team, which then could also pull out feedback for our product team, which could also then pull out feedback for our marketing team and then give insights to our CEO. And I bring this up because I was asking, I think I was actually asking Copilot this question because I was like, again, we're a Microsoft shop, so why not just use what we have? And once I realized how much information you have to feed Copilot in order for it to connect the dots, and then also it started laying out, okay, and then when this happens, you would have to tell me pretty like what to do with here and what to do with there. And so this is a project that I'm still keeping in the back of my mind and still mulling over. But you're right, those gaps and a lot of conversations are still happening person to person too.
Right.
And you can't account for that when it comes to AI. So as much as we want AI to be like it's doing it, it's awesome, it's great, there's a lot that it can't account for still. And then like that profile of, whoever is not really helpful anymore because there's so much information lost over here. And also we have organizations who just don't want to use AI. They don't want us to be able to record meetings or be able to, use it in different ways that would be helpful for everyone. They just don't want to. So I feel like we're working against that as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. The reticence to use AI can in fact be very strong. So I feel you.
Yeah. I wonder too, so you brought up a good point about like tools like Asana and Monday and some of these more like work management tools that fit in that Microsoft Planner space. I would imagine that they have AI agents that are already set up to do a lot of this over time and snapshotting and things of that nature. So to me, that's kind of bringing this, you took initiative. You're like, I'm going to learn how to do this. It makes sense to do it in Copilot. But yet other people are just going to be like, oh, we're just going to trust the Monday AI agent because it's already built out. And I feel like that's going to be, both of those can be dangerous in different ways. And so I feel like that could be a concern too.
Yeah, I think I would definitely do a verify of anything that a system like that brings you, because most project management systems really do only capture the point in time. And once that point in time changes, I'm not certain whether and if it can go back to what was the version last week on Friday, unless you've told it to always remember on Friday at 5 o'clock, like take a little snapshot of what this is and then refer back to that. Like that's the one. If I could talk to every project management software company, I would tell them, like, what are you doing with overtime? We need it. Please start. Like,
Yeah.
in some level, it is insane that a regular person would need to build an entire database to get one number, which is percent change week over week.
Yes. And so now I'm kind of going off on a different tangent here, but I also think that is, we'll say like the overall generic problem with not just AI, but also with specific products that are built to do like very specific things where you have to fit your model and your process into them. And it is going to leave a lot out because of that. And then we start getting into, product shipping with not all of the features and how that's going to impact long term, and how does that impact your reporting and how you're managing things. And that's honestly a much larger conversation and a little tangent we can go on there. But I think it's a really good point in terms of, AI is going to fall short regardless of where it's building. And the product is too. As a project manager, you still have a lot that you have to do in order to successfully manage the project, which is kind of comforting in terms of AI is not going to come for your job. It does not know how to do it.
Yeah, there are way too many disparate data sources for AI to be able to check.
Yes. So, okay, let's talk about how you would encourage others to really get curious about this and see what they could do for the organization. So, for a project manager who may be curious but hasn't started yet, what should they mentally prepare for to start?
I would say one thing I would tell them to prepare for is to be ready to really follow your curiosity. Like you have to be really interested in doing a thing with Copilot or your AI of choice, because you also have to be prepared for the second thing, a great amount of frustration. And it's not the AI's fault. They're not doing it to bother me. But inevitably, you are going to get responses that are wrong, responses that contradict themselves, responses that contradict the article that they've cited for you as a reason for why they're saying to do the thing that is actually wrong in that article, right? So it is not for the faint of heart, but it can also be really fun. Like when you've done the thing that you wanted, like you have found a need, you have filled it, and now you are doing it. Like here's a really dumb example. I made an AI agent that will rename PDFs for me. So when I drop it into a folder, it will add today's date as a file extension. It took me an hour to figure out how to do this, and it saves me 3 seconds of a right click and rename. But I love not having to do it. And now that I've built it once, I can build it for all my other places where I need it to be. And it was fun. Like if you have any curiosity at all, and like even if you don't, like you could just open up Copilot and be like, I'm a project manager. What can you help me with? Like you can ask AI to prove its value to you. And also I would say too, like whenever something comes up in a meeting that you don't understand, so a new technology gets mentioned, somebody makes a reference to a business line you're unfamiliar with, or just like something brand new and you're like, what the heck is that? Probably someone somewhere on the internet does know about it. And AI can go out there, find all those people, and summarize it for you in your preferred manner. Like, do you want a little podcast about it? Do you want a Wall Street Journal type article? Do you just want a friend to be like, hey, girl, here's this new tech I found for you? Like, it will do whatever you ask it to in whatever format you want it to. So I think like it's really good if you have stuff that you don't know, that you're curious about, that you want to see other examples of. I've used it to do things like create a sample project schedule for XYZ type of project. Because Lord knows, it might be the first time my client's done this project or the first time I have, but it's not the first time for the world. Somebody somewhere has done a project like this or exactly this project in the past, and it can go out and get you timelines, task list. I used one as a rough draft for a work breakdown structure meeting that I had. Like, it's great for finding examples and just filling in any gaps in your knowledge that you might have.
Mm-hmm. I love that too, because it's not necessarily it's not saying like, hey, this will make your job easier. Although I do love the whole date adding one, because yes, it did take you an hour. It is saving you 3 seconds, but that just makes life easier. So why not? But to that point too, if you don't know something, ask. And, you know, one of the things I like using Claude specifically for is just ideas. Like, hey, I have this idea. I'm thinking about this. Can you help me form this? Or can you ask me questions to really flesh out this idea a little bit more? I do that both for work and then also for personal life as well. And it's funny that you mentioned, you know, your AI will give it to you in whatever format you prefer. So my work account is very, you know, I don't want to say professional, but it is conversational. It's very coworker. Whereas my personal account, you know, I named her Chat. She is a girl. She is a friend. You know, I'm out here asking like, hey, I saw these jeans in this show. Like, where do you think they're from? And things of that nature. And so you can make it really speak the language that you want it to speak and give it to you the way that you want it.
Totally. Yeah, I use Claude to help me break down knitting patterns. It's actually really good at it.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm a beginning knitter and I'm doing some hard stuff right now. And so I asked Claude, like, explain this to me for a beginner, like stitch by stitch, not click by click, but stitch by stitch. And it does a great job breaking it. And again, like there were parts I said, I literally don't understand what that means. Can you try something else? You know, so.
Can you explain this in a different way? You know, I'm actually really glad you bring that up. I'm not good at watching YouTube videos. I know that that's like the #1 search engine in the world, but like if you make me watch a video on how to do it, I'm done. Like I'm out. But you give me like step by step, I got it and I'm in. Yeah, that's a good idea. So
Chat's your girl. She's great at doing that.
Chat's my girl. Don't worry. So to start wrapping us up, what is one thing that you know now that you wish you would have known then? So whether it's something super technical or just that level of curiosity you're going to need.
I think what I know now is that you don't have to be a developer to code stuff anymore. And you don't have to be afraid of trying it either, because like even if it does break, Copilot can usually help you fix it. Mm-hmm. And if it can't, probably a human who works there can. So I think that is the biggest thing, is just like you don't have to be a coder to write code anymore. Mm-hmm. You just don't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love that. Okay, so let's go ahead and close out this episode. I like to ask all of our guests the same question. What is your plan, Molly? What is next for you?
My plan is that this summer I am going on a cruise of all the Great Lakes to celebrate my mom's 75th birthday.
That is awesome. So where are you starting and where are you ending?
So we start in Duluth, Minnesota.
Okay.
Go across Lake Superior. We go into Lake Michigan through the Sault Ste. Marie locks. We hit Cleveland, Rock and Roll Museum, Detroit too on the way.
Yeah.
And then our last port is Toronto. But before that, we have a little stop at Niagara Falls.
That is awesome. As someone who lives in Cleveland, I did not realize that they did that. That is going to be awesome.
Yeah, I'm super excited. So yeah, my husband and I are going with my mom. It's for her birthday. It's going to be a great time.
That is amazing. Well, when you're getting close to Cleveland, let me know, because if you need, obviously, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but if you need anything else, I got you.
Awesome. Love that.
Awesome. All right, Molly. Well, thank you so much for your time today. This was such a fun conversation, and I really do think it's going to be helpful to a lot of people, because AI seems to be this like cloud of, I know it can do something, but what can it do?
Totally.
So I'm really excited for this, but where can people find you?
Oh, you can find me on LinkedIn, Molly Beran. You can also find me on my website, projectsbymolly.com.
Awesome. And we will make sure to link both of those in the show notes here. So,
Awesome.
All right, Molly, thank you so much. We'll talk soon.
Thank you. Sounds great.
Thanks for listening to What's the Plan, hosted by me, Samantha Varner, and produced by Kyle Wirtz. This podcast is brought to you by ProSymmetry. If you have questions, episode suggestions, or just want to say hi, we'd love to hear from you. Email us anytime at what'stheplanpod@prosymmetry.com. Until next time, thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you soon.